Good morning. I am Chris Mazzara, and this is 4 a.m. Motivations, a podcast completely dedicated to your growth. Now, today is exciting because we are with and joined by one of my best friends in the world. We could probably say the best friend, closest person ever. One of my college best friends. We have stayed in touch for a long time. We even went into business together for a while. And we are just here today, excited to go deeper. But let me give a warm introduction to my man, Santiago Vanegas.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me.
How did you like how I did the Vanegas part?
Good.
Yeah.
Accent, yeah.
I try to always keep the Spanish accents fresh and just work on them randomly. Sounds good.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you, bro.
You know, practice with money.
With my wife. Well, bro, I know you love public speaking. I know it's probably one of your favorite parts of life. And I know you practice these kind of things all the time, but this goes without saying. I know you're not nervous. I know that you're already just light, enjoying this moment. So, how you feeling, man?
Very good, man. Very good.
Bro, so let's get into some of the basics of you, right? So you are Mr. Calm, Cool, and Collected in all moments. You are the tall but gentle giant. People cannot cross you or they'll find out you're not too gentle. But you are loving, you are compassionate, you're very heartfelt, you're very empathetic, you're an athlete, you're strong as hell. You are the man, right? You are also a biomedical engineer. You work on people's hearts and surgeries. I can't explain that part too well. We'll have you explain that. Honestly, tell us what you do.
Yeah, so my job title specifically is called LVAD engineer. What an LVAD is, it stands for left ventricular assist device. And it's a heart pump that I designed. So, well, not that I designed, but that I build during...
You can tell people you designed it.
that I assemble during these open heart surgeries.
Yeah.
When patients with advanced heart failure need a heart transplant, but they can't wait long enough to get this device. So then that's when we go and implant them with this pump so that they can live longer while they wait to get a heart transplant.
Is there any pressure behind that? Like, how does it feel, like, working people's hearts?
So obviously in those surgeries, it is a high stress surgery, mostly for the surgeons that are involved. Obviously for us being the engineers, we do have to make sure that everything is assembled correctly. We're sterile, we're in a sterile field, so we have to make sure it doesn't get contaminated. All that is very important, obviously, to avoid infections for the patient as well. So, you just have to, there's no room for error, basically.
Yeah.
You have to make sure everything is on point.
Well, that's dope, man. I think it's incredible you do that kind of work, that you can actually assist in those ways. I know you've always been very scientific, very, very spacey. You have a universal kind of knowledge. Anybody that's gotten their engineering degree, right, you have to have a very, I want to say mathematical mind, but I guess that'd be closest to it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, let's start there, man. You achieved something great. I think the percentages are ridiculously high for the amount of people that go into engineering and then drop out and change their major. It's a very high percentage. So I think what I'm always focusing on with this podcast is the power of focus, right? The ability to focus on what we want in this world and block out distractions. And we live in the most entertaining times of history. Maybe like the Colosseum was probably pretty lit back in Rome. But these constant notifications, these constant pulls of our attention, in my opinion, are what decide if people live the life that they want or live a life talking about what they wish they would have done, what they wish they would have accomplished. So I believe you have the ability to really lock in on your focus. You've been an entrepreneur. Again, you work on people's hearts. Like, the level of knowledge that you've acquired is very great. So I want to talk about that power of focus, right? You went through engineering school. You were just a college kid, 20 years old, and what do you believe about your ability to focus, or the importance of focusing, or some of the keys of things that we need to do to increase our focus towards what we want?
Right, man. Yeah, I think that's extremely important, mostly because in the society we live today, there's a lot of instant gratification, right? That a lot of people strive for, that they just need or want. I'm a big believer that in order for us to have a successful future, a lot of times you have to make the sacrifices in order to get what you want, right? So delay your gratification instead of having that instant gratification. So in college, sacrificing going out with friends, sacrificing going to parties, sacrificing watching your favorite show, or doing whatever, right? So that because you had to study. I'm sure there were many people or many other engineers who they're able to study for 1 hour, get everything, memorize it, and they'll be good. As opposed to somebody like me, where I actually had to study for hours and hours. I would be those who, sure, you'd be reading, then after reading a paragraph, you would forget what you read. You have to go back, reread it again. So that goes, I guess you have to look into yourself whether you're willing to put in that effort. If you think that that finish line, that goal that you have set, if it's worth those sacrifices, then you just have to do what you have to do, right?
I think it's interesting. It plays into your ability to invest, right? So you're a big investor. That's something I should have included in your intro. You've always been very diligent in your finances. I've been what you know to be reckless with my finances in the past. And you've always been very diligent, very, very measured. But also you've been extremely disciplined about investing. So I know your crypto portfolio is very, very high, right? You have a very diverse crypto portfolio, and I know you have some heavy beliefs in Bitcoin and what it's going to do for the world. But I think that even goes into it, right? Somebody who says, hey, I've got X amount of money sitting over here in this investment portfolio for years because I know it's going to be something great. And just the thought of, I'm going to delay pulling that out, or even as it climbs, I'm not going to just take the profits and run. I think there's such a discipline about that, and such a, I wouldn't even call it sacrifice, because you're just poised about it, right? You have such a patience about these things. So how have you done with that, right? This delaying gratification, which I think is hard for all of us. Even in reference to your crypto portfolio, how have you conquered that ability to say, yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice the now because I believe the future will be greater?
Yeah, so again, that goes back to the instant versus delayed gratification, right? Like you just mentioned. So understanding that rat race that a lot of people wish they weren't in, or they're looking for ways to get out of it, whether it's through get rich quick schemes or just trying to do the entrepreneur route. And unfortunately, the majority of people that start their own businesses, entrepreneurship is very difficult, so they end up failing. Right? The ones that succeed are the ones that keep getting up after they fail. Finding ways out of the rat race, that was my initial pursuit, right?
Yeah.
So that's why back in 2015, 2016, I quit a job to try to get into the entrepreneur world. And through there, I learned a lot. I learned how to trade, learned how to create websites, how to create stores online, all this stuff. And then that led me to, like you mentioned, to Bitcoin. And prior to that, I had already a lot of knowledge about how the monetary system worked, how we are basically in a system that forces us, in a way, to spend our money, right, through inflation. That's basically what it is. If you don't spend your money every year, the Federal Reserve wants to decrease our purchasing power by 2%. So that basically makes it so that people spend money. What got me so interested into Bitcoin was that it does the opposite, right? It's a deflationary asset, which it just means over time, based on the fundamental aspects of it, in theory, it should go up as demand increases and the supply of it remains the same. So that makes it so if you really understand the fundamental principles of how it works, I guess that helps a lot with that patience that you talked about, of that conviction. Unfortunately, the majority of people that look into that space, they get sucked in due to the price movements, right? The big price movements upward, then they're buying because they want to get rich quick. The moment it starts dropping, they get scared because they have no idea what it is besides just, I thought I was going to get rich quick. Now the price is dropping, let me sell. They lose money. So it's important for anything, right? Not just Bitcoin, to understand what it is you're getting into, right? Whether it's setting up a business, podcasting, setting up a Shopify store, whatever it is, understanding how it works, why it might not be easy, what are the difficulties, just like the overall picture as a whole. That will give somebody, I think, that reassurance. If something starts to fail, they'll understand the other complexities that are involved with it.
Yeah.
So,
what kind of advice would you give to, and it doesn't have to be that you're telling us to buy crypto, but what kind of advice would you give to people about this power of investing?
I think just knowing what it is that you're investing in, right? Not just investing with your eyes closed.
Investing,
Yeah. So obviously, I think the majority of people that are invested in the stock market, they're doing it through their jobs, through 401ks and stuff, which is completely okay. But I think it is important for people to take accountability and understand how it works, how the stock market works, why it does what it does, what is the Federal Reserve, all these things. That way, if recessions come and prices drop, you can take action, right, and not just rely on, oh well, my job is the one that does it for me. I have no idea what's happening, right? So like when COVID happened during the pandemic, a lot of people at my hospital that were about to retire, they were all scared, obviously, because the prices were dropping, but they had no idea. I had people asking me like, what does that mean that now the money that's down, like, is it never ever going to come up? Like they had questions that I think somebody with some knowledge would understand, that eventually markets do recover, and just understanding in general, like how things work, whatever it is, whether you're investing or anything else, that will give that person some confidence.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm grateful because we followed your leadership and we've gotten a much more diverse portfolio than we ever had before, my wife and I. But great, man. I think it's powerful to give people this kind of knowledge and this kind of encouragement, right? I think people got excited about the pump and dump coins. What do they call those? The meme coins, right? So it's kind of, people think that this is like a get rich quick kind of thing, which I don't believe it is at all. And I believe people took advantage of, in great ways, but I don't believe that's kind of what we need to learn, what we need to be chasing when it comes to investing. So, bro, I think it's awesome, and I love the conversation with you because it's such a diverse one that we can have, right? I think your worldly knowledge is very in-depth, like we've been debating all day. Your nutrition knowledge is very in-depth. Your financial investing knowledge is very in-depth. So I want to go a little bit deeper for a sec, man, and when I think about Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, right, the Holocaust survivor, and he found some of his greatest philosophical understandings of life through his suffering. And he understood that through my suffering, we find this meaning. We can find the true purposes of life in these low moments. And, I know I've gotten your permission off camera to talk about this, but you are a cancer survivor. And people could never tell because you are a giant of a man now. And, that's a very big thing to overcome. So I think not just physically is a whole adventure in itself, the whole journey in itself. However, you've also mentally recovered in such a way that you don't identify as a victim. You don't talk about it with people. Some people will be watching this podcast, have known you for years, and still didn't know about that. So what is it, man, like during this time where you're facing the possibility of death, and that's a very scary thing. What did you learn during that time? What kind of resolve or character development came for such a scary thing, for such a young man at that time too?
Right. Yeah, man, I think, like you said, that suffering brings a lot of revelation, right? It brings a lot of understanding. So facing death, I think everybody eventually, once you get to that point, you realize that not a lot of things that you thought were important were. Right? So I remember before I was diagnosed, when I was 14, I had 10 pairs of Air Force Ones matching with different shirts and different jeans, and like I had to have them, and I was very, I guess, much more materialistic.
Which I've never known you to be.
Yeah, so I used to like make sure that everything matched and all this stuff, and like just and after, I guess, not that that's the only thing that it taught me, but right away it made me realize that everything that we have or that we think is
significant,
is important or significance in this materialistic world is not. Like the moment, like that quote that we hear all the time of like, oh, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the graveyard, like it doesn't matter.
You can't get buried with it.
Yeah, that, or like if you're the richest man in the graveyard, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff. At the end of the day, it's like the memories you make, how you treat people, how you, like I believe like how you treat others is how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, man, I think that unfortunately that feeling of almost dying happens either fortunately or unfortunately to the majority of people once they're already old.
Yeah.
Or if it's in a scenario where they are going to die no matter what. But to face an illness where you are at a high likelihood of death, and then during that time see that the world is still continuing, nothing is stopping for you, nobody is really caring. Of course, the ones near you are caring, and sure, they're sad, but life goes on, right? So you are your own person, your own entity, your own soul, the one that has to carry the life throughout, and you realize that nothing has value when it comes to the materialistic stuff except for the memories you create.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, it just gives you a different perspective on life, and you shouldn't really take everything that comes at you so serious.
Yeah.
I guess.
How long were you fighting it for?
So it was an intense course, like with chemo and stuff. It was maybe every day I did chemo for, I would say, around 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, a lot of people that get diagnosed and do chemo, it's maybe once a month, sometimes once a week, depending.
Mm-hmm.
Mine was every single day, so they
Was
did
there a
it
reason?
because we did it in Colombia, and I was diagnosed over there, and I was still going to school, so I didn't want to miss a whole year because it was supposed to be at least 6 months to a year of chemo. But we talked to the doctor, and he's like, all right, we could do it much shorter, but we would have to do it every single day, but that would increase like the side effects, and
Of course.
how bad you would feel.
Which I'm guessing was pretty major.
Yeah. I don't.
That's
So cancer itself, it's a virus, a disease. It's horrible, but the chemo is really what kills
Yeah.
you. The chemo is destroying your cells, your body, everything. But yeah, so the reason why it was that short is because I chose that. No, I want to do it quick. Like I want to go back to the States. I want to be with my friends. Like
Yeah.
all this stuff. So that's why it was that.
You were born here?
I was born in Colombia.
Oh, okay. So you born in Colombia, you came to the States, and you went back to Colombia for that treatment.
I went back to Colombia, and it just so happened that they found me over there.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's super, super intense, and at such a young age. I think what's amazing about you, you don't identify as a victim, right? Some people, when we have this trauma, period, through our lives, but especially when we're young, we gain a source of identity from it. We gain a source of significance from it. People start to pat us on the head, and oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, and we kind of like the attention. And then also, it gives us a good excuse throughout life as to why we don't accomplish that much. Well, hey, I struggle with this because, I went through this when I was younger. And, hey, I never pursued those things. I never took risks because, I used to have cancer. Hey, I had the trauma in the past. So I think it's so important for people to understand, sometimes they truly let their traumas limit them for the rest of their lives because they hang on to them so much. What is it about you, or what about that process where you didn't hang on to it, you don't announce it to people, you don't use it as an excuse? It's not a part of your story other than us forcing you to talk about it.
I'm not sure, to be honest, man. I don't know. I just don't. I am a big believer that each person goes through their own struggles, and we just have to be accountable for our own actions, the way we react to things. I think a lot of it has to do perhaps with upbringing as well, like somebody who goes through a specific trauma, based on whatever other events happened in their childhood or whatever it might be, has created a reason for them to talk about it a lot more, and that way perhaps then they feel more secure or whatever. Again, everybody is able to do whatever they want, right? But I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to be a person who is looked at as, like a victim, or like be pitied on, or like feel bad for. I want to be able to
You're more than
take action,
Yeah.
and do what I can with my life, become the best I can be, and not need for somebody to tell me, oh, because you went through this, then here, I'll give you this to help you, whatever. Like, no, like I know I could do it myself. Like, that's one of the reasons, going back to the investing thing, like I wanted to find a way to succeed on my own, and get to levels in the future, right? Delaying all the gratification to get to points where, all right, in the future I'll be able to live very comfortably.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna need anybody or anything to to help me. So
I think it's amazing, man. I really do believe the level of poise and emotional control you've developed. I wonder if it would have come without that whole experience. I think something for people to really understand about you is that you have an emotional control. I always compare you to the tree, right? You're rooted. Doesn't matter if there's a storm coming around. Yeah, you might shake a little bit, but you're rooted. You're grounded. And I really believe in Viktor Frankl's understanding of that, right? Man's search for meaning. We can find such a purpose of life and such a purpose here through our suffering. You and I are known to either have some extremely funny conversations, some extremely heated debates, or some very in-depth life conversations, right? And I kind of want to do what we always do. And through that experience, you kind of had this revelation. All right, you had a revelation that your pain is your pain, your life is your life. The world is not stopping just because you're hurting. That's important people to know. Very important people to know. It is not the world's problem that you have problems.
Exactly.
And I think when people can learn to accept that and almost embrace that as a challenge, I think it's the faster they can get over that trauma as well. So I want to talk about the purpose of life, right? The meaning of life. Now, you know I'm not diehard Christian. Well, I guess I am a diehard Christian. But I believe, my meanings of life have been altered in the last 3 years where I've really committed my life to following Jesus. And so I have an understanding of what we're here to do in this world and what the meaning of life and why we're in this experience right now. But I want to hear from you, man. Like, what is this meaning of life? Why are we in these bodies right now? What are we doing on this planet? And what's the purpose of it?
I don't know, that's obviously the question to be answered, right? Like, I think ultimately it always boils down to beliefs, right? What religion you have, if you believe in God, if you don't believe in God. Right? With me, I think personally, we just have to be the best we can be when it comes to interacting with each other as humans, right? I believe we are interconnected in one way or another, whether that's through God or if somebody is a scientific person, right? Like through the Big Bang, going to like quantum physics with quantum entanglement, right? Everything is connected at one point or another. One action does lead to something else, change, right? Action, reaction, all these things. But yeah, man, the purpose of life, I think, just being the best you can be kind to others, treat others how you want to be treated. Things begin to go your way when you start to act that way, right? Try to become the best you can, and then at the same time help others.
Yeah.
And then things start to fall into place. That seems to be like a law of nature.
Yeah.
It just ends up working a lot of times. But to say what the ultimate purpose of life is, obviously, I wish I knew.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it, right? Because yes, I'm Christian, but I would say the beliefs are the same. We are taught to love our neighbor, love our enemy. Love, number one. How you treat others, absolutely. Number two, we are meant to grow. We're meant to get better. We're meant to improve. Our lives should show the fruit of our life should be shown from the work that we're putting in. God is very, very much focused on the fruit of our life. He wants our life to bear good fruit as we work hard every day and we trust in Him. And then three, contribution. The importance of giving. Every single day, we should be trying to better the lives of people around us. Maybe that's dedicated through your work, dedicated to how you treat your family. But regardless, that is what we believe, right? And we see that example taught and led and walked out by Jesus. And that is kind of, the perfect model of what we're doing. Now, I think another part of it is this idea of evolution. And I'm not talking about apes and man, but I am talking about that we must evolve into the best versions of ourselves. Right. We should never live a life that is regressing. It should always be a life that is progressing. We should be progressing in our emotional control, in our financial growth, in our physical health, in our mental development. Everything should be progressing towards us evolving to the best versions of us. And I believe that's what we're here on this planet to do, is evolve, is to grow, is to learn. And I would encourage anybody who might be leaning a little too much into their phones or a little too much into their distractions. I believe you are shortcutting and you are cutting yourself off at the knees for what you could do in this lifetime. And I believe it leads to a life of regret. For me, my biggest fear has always been regret. More than sharks. And I got a big fear of sharks and open water. My dad showed me Jaws growing up. That was brutal. However, every single day he showed it to me. Brutal. However, I have a deep fear of regret. I truly do not want to reach 60, 70, 80, honestly, I don't want to reach 40 and feel like I left it on the table, that I could have accomplished more. And I feel like at 32, I've only scratched the surface. Like I really do already have regrets that I could have done things differently and become more. However, I still got like 78 years here where I can really make the most of this thing. 110 years old, I'm projecting that. But my man, I so appreciate you. I know that you gave us a strict deadline on this podcast of 30 minutes. And you have said Portugal is playing tonight. Is it Portugal?
Colombia.
Colombia is playing tonight. And I would not dare intervene in your soccer time. But I'm going to ask you one more question. One piece of advice to our listeners. These are people that are wanting to be more accomplished. People that are driven. People that wake up every day with a purpose and they want to do more. However, we all get our struggles. We all don't feel like doing things when we don't feel like doing them. So for you, man, what advice would you give to our listeners really just how to live their best lives?
I think one of the best things I've done is listen to my gut, or like the intuition, right, that we all feel. Sometimes we know we have to take action and we don't due to fear or thinking that taking that specific action might lead to the unknown, right, which is one of the scariest things that humans have, right? We want a lot of certainty when we make decisions. So, for example, me quitting my job back in 2015, that led to one of the best things, right, which was learning the entrepreneur world, learning about Bitcoin, learning the crypto world, learning how to invest, everything, and that opened up a ton of doors for me.
Yeah.
So I think if you can, obviously some people's life doesn't allow for them to make those drastic decisions, but if somebody is feeling a certain way where in their stomach they know that they have to make a tough choice, a lot of times that best route to take is going with that tough choice.
Yeah.
If you can't stop thinking about it day in and day out. Again, it's not an easy thing to do, but I believe that has led not just me, but a lot of people that talk about this feeling. When you do make that leap of faith to the unknown, a lot of times much better things end up happening than where you're currently at. So
yeah,
it can be scary, but I think that is some good thing that some humans should abide by.
Absolutely. I think whether it's our soul in us, whether it is God within us, but I believe we are born with this brain, this mind, some will call it the ego, right? But we are also born with this soul, right? This piece of God within us. And what we would call intuition is that soul, is God. Whatever we can't necessarily explain yet, we would say that's what it is. And when you hear that talking, best believe you should listen. Because the ego, the mind, the brain is born from fear. It just wants to stay alive, it wants to avoid pain, it wants to keep you safe. However, we know that life is not just safe. Life is filled with risks. And we must embrace those moments where we lean into our intuition to make our decisions, whether we're being led by God, whether we're being led by our soul, whatever you believe. But it's in those moments where I believe you have to make some very important, very drastic decisions. So, brother, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Let's just finish here. What are the top 3 things you love about me? Oh, unless you want to answer it, I'm going to wrap the pod up.
Dude, your smile.
Yes,
smile.
1, 2.
Your charisma.
Charisma. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. Guys, you could tell we have fun, but so grateful you all tuned in. I hope this blessed you, and I hope it encourages you. So, guys, I think it's so important to maximize on your lives. I think we could transform our lives, fortify our minds. I think we can become greater when we lean in to the work. So, we love you. Until next time, my 4am family. Peace. Hey everyone, this is Chris Mazzara. Thanks again for joining us at 4am Motivations. Please subscribe, rate, and share with others who you think would benefit from these words as well. And if you'd like to work with me directly on a one-on-one basis for personal or professional coaching, then please visit mazzara.co and find out how. And just because you're a listener of this podcast, when you speak to one of the members from our team, let them know that 4am Motivation sent you, and you'll receive an extra 15% off. We look forward to hearing from you and supporting you on your growth journey.